Hello there, and welcome to the start of our special election night coverage. This is Midterms 2018. I'm political reporter Natalie Brand.
I'm Chris Daniels.
And the wonderful Marco Lowe, our analyst and Seattle University professor. Things are getting started at the parties. We're already hearing from our first speeches, and I want to take us out to Issaquah, where Republican Congressman Dave Reichert, who's retiring, is giving a speech. His seat is the hot seat that we are going to be watching when the results start to come in. So let's take a listen to what Congressman Reichert has to say.
We all together have to be in the middle of this fight as a family. And that family, sometimes, I'm going to be blunt, very blunt here, sometimes we disagree. I'm the oldest of 7 kids, been married for 48 years. And I don't agree with all my brothers and sisters, and my wife and I, after 48 years, certainly don't agree with each other. So we are not going to agree with each other, but the base of our faith, the base of our platform, of our feeling, of our love for this country is the same. All of us together share that same feeling. It's the heart of a servant. It's we know that we are here to serve the people in this room and around us. And when we know we're here for others, people see that in our heart. They understand what drives us. And it's not about being the congressman or the congresswoman. It's about changing this country, making it great, and letting people know what we believe, what we think, what direction this country should go in. So I'm going to go fishing, and I'll tell you, last week I've been pretty relaxed this October. I went fishing last week. I don't know if I'm more dangerous on the political stump or fishing, because I tipped my kayak over that I was fishing in on Lake Chelan, and that lake is cold, by the way. So had to swim for 15 minutes, pushing a kayak full of water to the shoreline, but I still caught the fish. So there's a lesson for tonight. Never give up. Thank you all.
So that right there is Republican Congressman Dave Reichert, and the question on all of our minds is, which way does his seat go? Because this is one of the 24 target seats that Democrats have been focused on since 2019.
Since almost 04.
Or I'm sorry,
yeah.
2019. Since 2017.
Yes, and even going back to 2004 when Dave Reichert first ran, there was a challenge there as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Dave Reichert sounds like he's going to go fishing, not run for governor anytime soon.
Right. This is a race that no one is willing to call at this point. And what's really going to be interesting to see is, how does the higher than expected turnout impact all of these big races in Washington state? I want to show you some video from earlier today when the lines at King County Election Center for folks dropping off their ballot was really quite remarkable. Turnout could reach presidential levels, nearly 80%.
I can't speak to Washington state in particular, but I know NBC News was suggesting in their exit polling around the country that the amount of independents coming out of polling places around the country going Democrat tonight. Perhaps that's a factor when we start crunching the numbers in the next 24, 48 hours. But it seems like, at least in that initial exit polling, the independents or the people who didn't turn out 2 years ago strongly going Democrat tonight.
And that could be a storyline in the 8th district, where Republican Dino Rossi, a former state lawmaker, is facing a challenge from Democratic Dr. Kim Schreyer. I know that we have our colleague Eric Wilkinson standing by in Bellevue at the Democratic Party tonight, and that is where Dr. Kim Schreyer is expected to be. Eric, did you speak to Dr. Schreyer a short time ago?
We're waiting for the ballots to drop here at the Democratic Party in Bellevue. You know, the 8th District has never sent a Democrat to the House of Representatives. It sent some to the White House, but never to Congress. This could change all that tonight. It is an interesting district, stretching from a Boeing plant to some affluent Seattle tech suburbs to apple orchards in Wenatchee. It's a true microcosm of this country, and it's been widely considered a toss-up race nationally. That is why so much has been poured into this race money-wise. Democratic hopeful and pediatrician Dr. Kim Schreyer taking on Republican Dino Rossi in a district left open by retiring Republican Dave Reichert. Here's Dr. Schreyer a few minutes ago.
Dave Reichert won this seat by 20 points in 2016. So to even be neck and neck in the polls, well, that is a huge accomplishment. And I feel that it is our field efforts, our 400,000 doors knocked and our 4,000 volunteers that will put us over the edge and eke out a win. And I'm really excited and honored to do that for the district.
Of course, this midterm has been painted as a referendum on President Donald Trump. If that holds true, then Kim Schreyer may have some good news on her hands tonight, because the 8th District went for Hillary Clinton 2 years ago by 3 points. We'll see if that holds true once again. Bring it back to you in the studio right now.
And we know that the candidates were really campaigning up until the very last minute. Dr. Schreyer held a Get Out the Vote event in Auburn, which is considered a battleground, key battleground in this district. Dino Rossi was phone banking from his office in Issaquah all day. A spokesman for him said to undecided voters. It's interesting to think that there were still undecided voters in this race that we've been talking about for so many months on this final day.
It happens. There are people who are clearly going to identify with one party or the other, but many, particularly in these districts that aren't so close to urban or rural areas, you do find folks that don't identify with a party as much as you might find elsewhere.
And as Eric was noting, such a geographically diverse district that stretches from the west side of the Cascades across to the east side of the Cascades. A lot of different dynamics at play in this race. And I know, Chris, you've been following the national picture as well.
Yeah, I mean, the big news here in the last half hour to hour is NBC News is projecting that the Democrats will regain control of the U.S. House, also projecting the Republicans will maintain control of the Senate, and we have numbers.
We have some new numbers that just came into the 8th. We're looking at the 8th Congressional District. If we have a full screen ready to show you, and with this first batch of results, Dr. Schreyer is leading at this point. Not quite sure how much of the vote is yet in, but she has a pretty wide lead at this point, an early lead. Yep. Marco, we're looking at nearly 58 to 42. What does that tell you at this point?
That looks like a King County drop to me, and that is a healthy vote count. Clearly, there's other counties that have to come in, including Pierce and Kittitas. But I would say that if you're going to win as a Democrat in the 8th, you need numbers like that in King County.
Okay.
Yeah, that is only King County right now.
At this point, and that is one of 5 counties in this very large district. And King County, we know, would tend to favor the Democrat, Dr. Schreyer.
Absolutely. Even with redistricting, they pushed out a lot of the Democratic areas that were in the old 8th Congressional District, but the Plateau, Microsoft employees, high educated, high net worth tend to be swinging Democrat in this modern era.
Okay. I do want to get to one of our other colleagues in the field. Natalie Swaby is standing by at the Republican Party in Issaquah tonight. Let's take it over to her.
Well, we're here at the Republican Watch Party headquarters, and a lot of excitement in this room. They're watching some of the results come in, just cheering as they saw some results coming in from Missouri. And also, moments ago, we had Susan Hutchinson up on the podium. Now, Hutchinson, a Republican, is challenging Senator Maria Cantwell. And we had a chance to talk with her one-on-one tonight before she took the podium. Here's a little bit of what she had to say about how things feel to her right now in this moment.
There is such a desire for change, and you can feel the passion in the people that are voting for me. And so today we were at the ferry terminal, not a safe Republican area. It's people who are commuting to Bainbridge or other places on the Kitsap Peninsula. And there was so much enthusiasm from voters who said they had already voted for me and wanted to get pictures. And so many of them talk about needing a change.
Now, Hutchinson is the wife, the daughter, the mother of military service members. She talked about that tonight. She is also someone who says she's done a lot for her community. She was a TV news anchor for a number of years. She was the chairman of the state Republican Party. And now she said she's still optimistic and hopeful that she can become a U.S. senator. Also in this room tonight, we are closely watching the 8th Congressional District race, and we have Republican Dino Rossi challenging Democrat Dr. Schreyer. We know that Dino Rossi has people saying that he has been able to work bipartisan way on many issues, and we know this is a race that's seen a lot of money, topping $25 million that's poured in, 16 million of that coming in from outside groups. So it's something that's being watched around the country as they're waiting to see what happens with this race. We're here waiting to see when Dino Rossi will come here and make some remarks. It might be a little bit later because we know his race, they're in a dead heat according to polls, and we may not have results by the end of tonight even. So we have a lot of people here very anxious to see what happens in this 8th Congressional District race. That's what's happening right now in Issaquah. I'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Natalie. And again, some additional counties are starting to report, but at this hour, the big county that is in is King County, which is a Democratic-leaning county. So just to remind you, since Natalie Swaby was just talking about that race, Dr. Kim Schreyer is up in this early batch of results in the 8th District, with only King County in that district reporting so far. She was also talking about the U.S. Senate race. Incumbent Democrat Maria Cantwell facing a challenge from Susan Hutchison, and with King County in and several other counties around the state, you can see Maria Cantwell is at a whopping nearly 70%, again, with a handful of counties reporting. Let's take you to some of the big initiatives that we have been watching. Again, we don't have the full statewide picture at this point. We have the King County picture, but let's go to 1631. That is the carbon fee initiative that we've been so curious to know how voters feel about this measure. And at this point, more than 52% are saying yes. But again, this is 53% there. This is again with Democratic-leaning King County.
Yeah. You know, I would think that if you wanted to pass this statewide, you would want a higher number at this point. You need King County to probably drag a lot of it across the line. And that number is a little bit low in my estimation. It's early, but you're going to have a lot of conservative, tax-sensitive counties weigh in. And that number could very likely go below 50% as the night goes on.
And we've also seen how neighboring Pierce County and Snohomish can really make a difference in some of these measures.
Absolutely, and they will vote for taxes there, from time to time. But this is a new idea, and I think it needed maybe 65% out of King County to have a shot.
One measure that appears to be passing by a comfortable margin is
Prop 1, the family education and preschool levy in the city of Seattle, a big property tax increase request. It looks like that will pass with flying colors. 68% of the vote, almost 69% tonight, saying yes to that measure, which would replace two expiring levies, increase property taxes 36 cents on every $1,000 worth of assessed value. Jenny Durkin, the mayor of Seattle, really has been a big backer of this, ran on this at one point, the idea of the Seattle Promise, giving 2 free years of Seattle college education to Seattle public high school graduates. There's also money that would be used to fund early learning in preschool of about 2,500 kids. Again, 69% of voters, 164,000 voting yes on this tonight of the votes that are in. So that is a big measure that has just come in here tonight.
And there was some concern that the head tax debate in Seattle would have a hangover effect on that measure. It doesn't seem to be happening at all.
Well, and that was one of the concerns going into this. As you know, the Seattle City Council repealed that head tax because there was a thought that it was going to go to a ballot measure in this cycle, and this would be a referendum on taxes and take down this education levy. That was one of the big driving forces behind the scenes to repeal that head tax so they could have a result like they see tonight.
Absolutely.
Okay. Moving on to Initiative 1639, which is the measure regarding gun safety, raising the age to purchase semi-automatic rifles from 18 to 21. Again, with not all counties reporting, nearly 67% of folks are saying yes to this. And this is a result, if we had to guess on any of the initiatives, This one was poised to pass based on some of the grassroots momentum behind it.
Grassroots and supporters of this measure have been stepping towards it. We passed a measure 2 years ago. They're going to high turnout November elections that are either presidential or congressional, and they are setting the groundwork, and they keep moving the line forward. It has been methodical and effective.
And this group has had a lot of success, as you just mentioned.
They also were some of the folks that were also behind the increase in the minimum wage we saw in 2016 as well.
Okay. Turning now to 1634 on groceries. This is neck and neck at this point with, again, not all of the vote in. But this one, yes to affordable groceries. So far, just shy of 52% are saying yes to this and 48% no.
It's a confusing measure in that you have to say yes to be no on grocery taxes that were in essence the soda tax in Seattle.
Right. And this did come up. A couple voters were confused that I noticed that I talked to. And lastly, before we go to some other races, let's take a look at I-940. This is De-Escalate Washington regarding use of police force. And so far, around 62% are approving this measure.
And there was talk from police guilds and unions that had concerns about this, but we did not see tremendous expenditures by them.
Right.
And I think they saw polling early on that we're seeing reflected tonight that would have been hard to defeat it.
And I think a lot of people, what they really embraced about that initiative is the increased training. And they thought that some of the reforms that have been applied to Seattle should be stepped up statewide.
Yes, I think Chris has some information on the third over there.
Yeah, it's looking in that race that we talked about earlier tonight with Jamie Herrera Butler and Carolyn Long, as we look at these numbers coming in from the Secretary of State's office, that it is very close right now. Carolyn Long with 50%, just over 50% at 50.38% of the vote, and Jamie Herrera Butler, the incumbent Republican, at 49.62%. And we can see that Long is winning in Clark County, Herrera Butler winning in Cowlitz. She is also winning in Klickitat County. Lewis County has not come in yet, but Herrera Butler, it's very close in most of these counties as we still wait on Thurston and Wahkiakum County. But that appears to be a close race tonight down there in the 3rd district as we continue to get these numbers.
Yeah. That is a swing district. It's gone back and forth between Democratic and Republican control. But I've noticed Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Butler, the Republican incumbent, has really tried to take a moderate position on a lot of different issues and at times distance herself from President Trump and try to keep in line with her district, which is more of a swing district.
You know, she has with Lewis County coming in, it will likely be a majority for the Congresswoman just historically. But when that was redistricted and they moved Olympia out of the district, it was supposed to be a safer seat, just the way taking Bellevue out of the 8th district was going to be safer for Republicans. But the growth of these suburbs and them becoming more blue has really shown that some of the maps were not as well drawn as you might have thought for GOP support.
Her Democratic challenger, Carolyn Long, not a really well-known name, a political science professor in Southwest Washington. And so, again, this is considered an extremely close race, given, Jamie Herrera Butler being an incumbent, a popular Republican. Established Republican. It will be interesting to see what the rest of the district decides. This is, as you mentioned, increasingly urban parts just outside of Portland, but then different parts that feel very economically left behind in that Southwest Washington region.
It is also an interesting congressional district in that it is part of 2 of the most expensive TV markets in the region. So you have the northern areas have to feed out of Seattle for ads, and the southern comes out of Portland. So really hard to challenge an incumbent because you have to spend so much money to be up on the air.
Right. Speaking of other big congressional races that we've been watching, let's see if anything in Eastern Washington is reporting right now, because we also have had an eye
Numbers are up
on the 5th district, which is incumbent Kathy McMorris Rogers' district. Right now, she is up 54% to Lisa Brown's 45%. This is Congresswoman McMorris Rogers' toughest re-election battle to date. It's definitely safe to say that she is facing a well-known Democrat, a former state lawmaker, former majority leader in the Senate, state Senate, and also a former chancellor of WSU Spokane. And I know from being in that district and reporting on the race, a lot of folks were talking about health care, particularly in Spokane, where hospitals and medicine, that's a big industry there.
It is, and you have a lot of poverty. Some of the poorest areas in the state are both the districts within Spokane and some of the northeastern counties of Washington state. So when healthcare was on the chopping block and Cathy McMorris Rodgers was voting in support, you saw a wedge issue that was tried to be used by the Democrats.
So I'm wondering, Marco, if we take a look at those numbers again in Cathy McMorris Rodgers' race, can you tell anything about where we are at this point?
You know, that's a pretty good, healthy count that we don't know if it's Spokane County, which is sort of the question I'm wondering. So either some of the smaller counties just got off the dime quickly and threw their ballots in, but I think Spokane might be part of that given the actual numbers we're seeing. And if that is the case, then I think Lisa Brown's chances may not be as strong as she had hoped.
Okay, which this was a little bit of a different story than the primary when it was much closer, but then again, you also had a few different Republicans in the primary as well. Other big races that we are watching, some of the statewide races. Let's see what Senator Joe Fain's district is doing. Give us a second. We try to get through as many results as possible. Okay, so as you know, if you've been watching the news, State Senator Fain was accused by a former City of Seattle employee of rape years ago in Washington, D.C. when his accuser came out actually on Twitter the day of the Kavanaugh hearings.
Yes.
And it was a huge shocker for a lot of people.
And we were sitting here on primary election night, and we were looking around the sound, except for the 31st legislative district, Senator Fain was one of the few bright spots in the GOP that was on a Puget Sound legislative district. So it'll be interesting to see how he is doing tonight. That's close.
It's very close right now. He is up just ever so slightly, really within 1,000 votes at this point.
And what will often be seen in these races is these are the first ballots that were mailed in. So these are voters that got it, knew what they were doing, and sent it back. Many of these probably came before the accusation. Well, no, the accusation was already out. So you may see a trend more progressive as these votes get counted. So that's a pretty strong showing for Mona Doss.
That is. So we are going to join King 5 coverage right now and do a quick update on King 5. So stay with us right here on the digital side of things, and we'll just do a quick switch out with our anchor, Mark Wright.
Good evening. This is the moment we've been waiting for. Welcome to King 5 election coverage on election night. Mark Wright along with Natalie Brand, Chris Daniels. We've gotten our first big dump of numbers here in King County. 661,000 ballots have now been released. So guys, this is what we've been waiting for, right?
This is what we've been waiting for. And one race that is comfortably safe to call is Proposition 1 out of Seattle.
That is the Families in Education levy that Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin ran on to a certain extent. 68% of voters are approving this right now. Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin is at the podium speaking here on election night. Do we have her? We'll show that to you later, but it is a victory for her because she ran on this idea of a Seattle promise in her campaign to become mayor, to give free college education to high school students in the city of Seattle. It was a big ask, a big property tax measure of $620 million. There's some other preschool aspects that go into this, giving childhood education to young kids. But 68% of the voters said, yes, they're willing to tax themselves, extend their property tax in order to pay for this. And I think Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin is happy with the results.
All right, let's go to the 8th district. This is a big one.
Oh, actually, okay, so there you're seeing the numbers
Yep,
there.
those are
But
the
now
numbers.
let's take you to the 8th district, because this is the other race that we were eagerly awaiting the first batch of results. And right now, with King County, most of the vote coming from King County, we have Democratic Dr. Kim Schreyer up by nearly 55% right now to Dino Rossi's 45%. But again, this reflects mostly the King County, Democratic-leaning King County vote. So we'll have to wait to see as some of the other counties report, since this is a district with 5 different counties across it, across both sides of the county.
Still waiting on Pierce, too.
Yeah. Okay.
Another really close congressional race that we've been eagerly watching, or waiting to watch, is the Southwest Washington 3rd District. That is the one where Republican incumbent Jamie Herrera Butler is facing a challenge from Democratic political science professor Carolyn Long. You can see this is a close race, 52 to 48, just about 10,000 votes between them. And this is with Clark County reporting, I believe.
It looks like everybody's reported, Natalie. That's why. So that number is new.
Of the vote in, but at this point, this is a tight race and a swing district that's gone back and forth from Democratic to Republican control. So we will continue to keep an eye on this one. And now let's get through some of the measures. 1631, that is the first of its kind statewide initiative on a carbon fee. Our first look at the results here, we have about 40%. Okay, so the numbers swung big time, and I believe that is because of Snohomish County.
Yeah, the first numbers that we saw, those numbers were flipped with a majority out of King County, but Snohomish County numbers came in, and 61% of voters in Snohomish County rejected 1631, according to the numbers that we've received tonight. Only 38% approving. So when you factor that in, that's why we've seen the pendulum swing.
That's why we're seeing a major shift overall. Last time we checked, this was actually leading. So really fascinating to see. We know that a lot of folks were undecided heading into the final voting weekend. We have much more to talk about.
We sure do. So some of you, if you stay on Channel 5, you're going to go back to NBC's coverage. Go to king5.com for our streaming coverage throughout the evening. And we'll be back with another local update here on Channel 5 in 30 minutes from now. See you then.
Go back. Hi there, we are back on king5.com. So let's talk about this major shift with 1631. Last time we chatted with you, it had the slight edge. The yes side had the slight edge, but then Snohomish County reported.
Yeah, interesting. In those first numbers that we had the King County numbers first. And a lot of these initiatives, and I know, Natalie, you have your fingertips there at the computer, but Snohomish County is rejecting this in a big way, 61 to 38%, and that is the carbon fee, concerning the pollution. And you look across the board, really, with some of these initiatives, the grocery tax initiative that has been backed by Big Soda, Coca-Cola, Pepsi. You see the statewide totals there now. 54% of voters approving it as opposed to 46%. This is something that kind of came out of the discussion in the city of Seattle with soda tax. And the distributors got behind this in a big way to try and block it from becoming a statewide movement. Yes, in Snohomish County as well. You look at 1634, just 60% of voters said this should be approved. 39%
Snohomish
opposing.
is saying a big no to taxes right now.
Yeah.
And that's been a trajectory for them for some time.
And now let's see whether anything changed with 1639 gun safety. That still has an overwhelming lead at this point. It is poised to being on its way to passing.
And again, as we were saying, there's been a lot of steps along the way to get to this point. There were some recent slayings with assault rifles, and so I think the polling was always fairly strong.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to see whether we have some folks at the podium. Okay, we're hearing that we're waiting for Republican 8th District candidate Dino Rossi to take the stage at the Republican Party in Issaquah tonight. We will wait for that. But let's go back to checking some of these legislative races. And I'm thinking Legislative District 5, which is the Issaquah area, and it does have a lot of overlap with part of the 8th District. So I was curious to see what would happen there. And at this point, again, with not all of the vote in, but the Democratic candidate Bill Ramos is leading right now to Chad Magendaws, who's a known name in Olympia.
Both Democratic candidates are ahead right now with substantial leads, not runaway, but strong and with pretty good vote counts. The 5th used to be just a wasteland, as the Democrats would have candidate after candidate year after year and couldn't get across the line. So to watch them win, or at least be ahead with 5 points tonight, is impressive.
And we'll go to the position 2. That is where incumbent Paul Graves was facing a challenge. And as you can see, the Democratic candidate, Lisa Callan, is ahead right now. Again, it's too early to call these races, but it is significant that in this first batch of results, the Democrats are up, especially since we know that in Democratic areas, some of that later vote does tend to trend more Democratic leaning or progressive.
Yes, and in fact, many of these are areas that are also voting in the 8th, and we're bringing some of the votes that are a problem for Dino Rossi tonight as well.
Okay. And we were also, Chris, this is one that you reported on, the 30th District. Let's see what's going on there, because that was one of the fiercest battles in terms of Republican seats that state Republicans were trying to hold on to.
You're talking about Mark Malosha and Claire Wilson down in the 30th. And if I look at the map, we can show you that right now the thing we're waiting on is Pierce County. Pierce County has not submitted their numbers. So right now all we have is King County.
Interesting.
All right, interesting. So let's go to Issaquah. That's where Dino Rossi has just taken the
I'm here to say thank you. I'm here to say thank you. You know how it works in Washington State. You never have a election night, you have an election week. There's a lot of ballots still to be counted, but I really just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody in this room. There are so many friends, so many people that really believed in us, all the things that we talked about. You know, the ideas that really moved us in this campaign. I was very clear about the issues. You know, I have with me some of the greatest blessings of my life. I have our daughter Jillian, our youngest. She's right here, and Joseph and John and Juliana and Patrick, and our newest addition to the family, little Adeline Grace, our first grandchild. And honestly, the greatest blessing of my life for 31 years, my wonderful wife, Terry. I'll tell you. Well, right now it's too early to call, but you know, obviously we're optimistic. And we'll see what happens. You know, we worked hard. We all worked so hard. I slept really well last night because, you know what? I gave it everything I had. You know, and you look at why people run for office. There really is only one reason to ever run for public office, and that's to be in the right place at the right time to do something good for your community. That's it. I tell you what, if you just want to see your name in the paper, I guarantee you'll be surrounded by words you don't like. That is not the reason to ever run for public office. I ran for the 8th Congressional District because I really believed I had something to offer. I thought we have enough people yelling at each other in Washington, D.C. without adding another one. That's right. And you know what? It's really true. It's really true. We need people that can work together. We need people that can actually bring people together. That's why I decided to run for office. That's why I decided to run for the 8th Congressional District. You know, my desire for public service has been all my adult life. That hasn't changed. Why do you do that? You try to make people's lives better. Whether it's work in Special Olympics or work with Seattle U or my work in the state Senate, it really is about trying to make people's lives better. There's only one reason to ever do this, to ever go through all this. You know, it's pretty amazing. We were outspent by $10 million, that's true. But we did a real effort going door to door. We did a real effort with all our volunteers. And I just want to say thank you to everybody in this room. Stay tuned, we'll see what happens. I really want to say thank you to my family, though. You're the greatest blessing in my life. Thank you very much, God bless.
So not conceding anything, but did he sound terribly optimistic to you? He sounded very measured.
He's measured. It's a little early still to make any decisions, but I'm sure he wanted to see the numbers inverted for him at this point in the night.
Right. And again, worth pointing out that Pierce County has not yet reported, and that is a key part potentially of his voting base within that district.
The 8th in Pierce County is Eastern Pierce County, so a much more conservative area, not Tacoma, and will be helpful to him.
Okay. Let's take another look at the 3rd Congressional District in Southwest Washington, because that's where we have all counties reporting right now. And this is a close race, but Jamie Herrera Butler, the Republican incumbent, has widened her lead slightly in this race. With all counties, it seems we have a percentage of the vote from all counties. Chris Daniels is at the board with a better look at that.
Yeah, it looks like Carolyn Long just won Clark County, at least in the vote tonight. You called it. Once the Lewis County numbers came in Thurston County, Jamie Herrera Butler, the incumbent Republican, 68% of the vote there in Lewis County. This are numbers coming in from the Secretary of State's office. You see in Thurston County as well, she won 63% of the vote, 57% in Wahkiakum. So she won almost every county in that district besides Clark County, where Carolyn Long is from. So
right outside of the Portland metro area, right across the bridge. And maybe this is, well, this definitely, I should say, is a national storyline that we've been noticing, is that the urban-rural divide actually seems to be staying the same, if not widening, across the country.
Exactly, and you see that because Clark County really is the population base of that district. What was interesting is in the last redistricting, they made a fairly safe seat for Congressman Heck out of Olympia, and if some of those votes had been more down into the 3rd district, you might see a different outcome tonight.
Right.
You realize how powerful the redistricting decisions are in the outcomes years later in these races.
Okay. And I do now want to go back to some of the legislative races. We were telling you about the 30th legislative district, which is a key target for state Democrats and a key Republican defend. Without Pierce County in at this hour, we have Claire Wilson, the Democratic candidate, up slightly with about 53%. You know, she's up by about 2,000 votes at this point over incumbent Mark Malosha. Chris Daniels, you ran into Mark Malosha on Halloween when he was sign waving.
Yeah.
He was pretty much sign waving like 48 hours straight there.
By himself there on the corner of Pacific Highway and 320th. He was waving his signs around, and he was optimistic. And it's interesting with Mark Malosha. Really, we've seen in the last year or two in particular, he has run this kind of anti-Seattle, not campaign, but some of the things that he's brought up, whether it be measures, whether it be legislation, whether it be his own campaign. He was quick to point out that he is not a Seattle politician, even though he's running in that district, and it's obvious to everyone. And we'll see if that resonates once we get the Pierce County numbers in. Pierce County, help us out here, because right now we're seeing in King County that the Federal Way School Board president is winning.
Okay.
That'd be Claire Wilson.
Let's go back to check out some of the measures. 1639, I'm told. Do we have, hang on one second, do we have someone at the party speaking on 1639? Okay, we have Attorney General Bob Ferguson speaking about 1639, which looks to be poised on its way to passing tonight, the gun safety measure. Let's take a listen to that.
Attorney General Bob Ferguson tried repeatedly in Olympia to get some new laws on the books regarding guns. Didn't work there. It appears, though, statewide, the numbers are very good, at least the initial numbers. Your reaction?
Yeah, it's overwhelming. I mean, more than 60%, but it just speaks volumes that the people are way ahead of the politicians when it comes to common sense gun reform.
What do you think it was? Because you know the struggles Republicans and Democrats had in Olympia on this. Why did the voters seem to, at least at this point, back it so strongly?
Voters are not afraid of the NRA or special interest groups. Politicians are. I know, I've spoken to them. They would not pass this common sense legislation the past 2 years. Then when it goes to the people, you see overwhelming support. I hope the politicians in Olympia, frankly, learn a lesson from what happened here tonight.
You told us earlier you do believe this will end up in a courtroom. There will be lawsuits filed. Is this constitutional? Does this law go too far regarding the Second Amendment?
Yeah, I believe it's constitutional. The courts will have the ultimate say. We'll do the best job we can to defend the will of the voters in this important issue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Attorney General Bob Ferguson, we appreciate it. Again, the very initial results appear to suggest that I-1639 will be passing in the state of Washington. From the Edgewater Hotel, I'm Drew Mickelson. Now back to you.
All right. So now let's head back to the state legislature. And one of the big races that we were keeping an eye on was the 34th legislative district in West Seattle. That had two Democrats running, Shannon Braddock, who also ran for city council a few years ago, and Joe Nguyen.
And Shannon lost a very narrow election to the city council, but didn't include the entire district. You have Vashon in here, a little bit of Burien Center, and Joe Nguyen really came out of a very crowded primary field, had the stranger's endorsement, and has, in this first drop, has 57%, which is an incredibly strong showing, given that he, before running for office, was fairly unknown.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And kind of, I'm thinking back, I'm getting a sudden flashback to 2015 when Shannon Braddock was actually leading on election night against Lisa Herbold, and then it was only in the later results that when the lead swapped. Right. So it's possible that Joe Nguyen maintains his lead given what we know about the later vote. I do want to get over to a Seattle election night party because it looks like we have Mayor Durkin talking about Proposition 1.
Afford great preschool will now be able to make sure their kids have that education so they show up ready to learn in school. And we just had a study done. Ours is one of the leading programs in the nation. We're now going to make that available to more people. And so kids will thrive and families will thrive. Then we're spending more money in K through 12 to close that opportunity gap and make sure that we have things like nurses and family support systems so that our kids actually can graduate. And then in high school, we're going to really guide them to graduation and have counselors. And if they graduate, they'll get 2 years free college. The colleges are there to accept them. And we will make sure when they land, they have guidance counselors. We're going to connect it up with the jobs we have in this great area. We want the best jobs to go to our kids. And this is the way to give opportunity to our kids and really close that growing disparity in our city.
And just finally, talk to me about what long-term impacts you expect to see from this.
I think this will change. This is a game changer for Seattle because we now know we have 7 years where we are investing in our kids in a way we've never done before. And I can tell you, I know it's going to be a success because mayors throughout the state, they want in. They want 2 years college for their kids because we know there's almost 700,000 jobs. Say that again, 700,000 jobs coming to Seattle in the next 5 years. Most of them require some college education, certificate or degree past high school. Only 30% of our kids were getting that. So we will move Seattle to the front of the line for the best jobs, and I think that's fantastic.
And then last question for you. We hear from people that say, they feel like the taxes just keep climbing on them. Can you talk about how you justify this and how we're going forward with it?
I think we had to make the case to people that when the 2 levies expired, the amount in addition that we added, which was about $7 a month for the average house, that they were going to see a payoff. And I will tell you, I've been all over the city, and I know that people believe in education, they believe in our kids, and they want Seattle, they want everyone to have an opportunity. And they want to make sure that this is a city where every kid has a shot, but families can afford to live. The best way we close disparity is through opportunity.
Mayor, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cool.
Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin there. It's a big political victory for her, something she ran. I think it's interesting that last question, that was Michael Crow from King 5 asking about taxes. Seattle continues to show that it's willing to tax itself for education. What I think some people don't realize right now is there's 2 more tax levies coming up on the ballot in February from the Seattle School District. So potentially 4 property tax levies with McCleary, what happened down in the state legislature with this one, and these 2 coming up in February. We've asked the question now for years, when is Seattle going to feel like it's overtaxed? Or when do Seattle voters say no more taxes on education? I think we saw just in the run-up to this election, there isn't a lot of appetite to oppose one of these levies. There was no organized opposition. You only saw a few signs saying yes on Prop 1. It's going to be, I think, an interesting story, though, when people start to get these bills. They got a big tax bill in 2018, another big one in 2019, potentially 2 more increases in 2020 with the amount of property tax levies. When will people say no to these? And I haven't seen any sort of indication or polling that suggests anybody is willing to say no just yet.
It's a great point. And with these ballot measures increasing taxes, we've seen wages go up in the city of Seattle. Property values have gone up almost exponentially in the city of Seattle as well. So I think people are seeing it tracking with their income. But you're right, the property tax bills are getting larger and larger. And there will some point, maybe if we see a recession happen or something arrest job growth in the city, maybe then you might see a thriftier voter.
Heading back to some of the state ledge races that we've been following, we have an interesting story in Legislative District 32 where the incumbent, Marilyn Chase, was facing a challenge by a fellow Democrat who is actually leading her tonight, Jesse Solomon, and we were hearing from sources on the ground that there was a good chance that this could happen. But look at that number. What does that say about how voters feel about Marilyn Chase in their district?
Well, she's been there a while. But Jesse's also a city council member in Shoreline, which is the largest city in the district, and has run many times. He ran a very hard race. He worked incredibly hard. And I think, some of the profiles of Senator Chase in the paper were not that complimentary. She came off somewhat acerbic in interviews and things of that nature. So we're seeing tonight, Jesse was right to take this on.
Okay, very interesting. Overall, we've covered a few different state legislative races. Is there a trend line yet? I know that former Republican state party chair Chris Vance, who is now an independent, said that Dems are making gains without Pierce County reporting. Kind of a lot remains to be seen, but this isn't a massive wave in the state legislature.
No, some of the talks of 70 Democratic seats in the House are not going to be realized. If you go down to Clark County, the 49th is very solidly D, but even the districts outside of outside of Vancouver, Washington, are still looking pretty R. So there'll be pickups in both bodies, but not dramatic.
And this kind of follows the national storyline as well, the balance of power shifts that we're seeing in the House. There's gains, but not a massive tsunami.
Well, what we saw was, yes, absolutely true. The Democrats clearly showed up tonight in ways they normally do not in midterm, although the Republicans did not stay home either. So you saw continued high turnout from the GOP, which is typical for that party, and the Democrats matched it and gained the national House, are picking up here in Washington, but not a 94 or 2010 election.
Right. And everyone's kind of wondering what's going on in Pierce County and when will we have results from there? Because without Pierce County, a lot of questions still remain.
Sure. The 8th Congressional District.
Some sort of problem, and they sent out a paper
Oh, okay. We have a new update.
Hard copies.
I know.
Hard copies.
This just in.
1999 has returned.
Okay, so Chris Daniels in his hands holds the answers.
Do you want me to write and carry the
All right, let's see. Which one do we care about first? We've been waiting
Let's
on
see,
all
8th
sorts of
district.
numbers.
Let's go to the 8th district.
Yeah, are they just Pierce County numbers? Because we can do the 30th right now. Over
just
your shoulder.
we can do rough math. The Pierce County numbers on the 8th district. Dino Rossi getting 17,815 votes, or 56%. Kim Schreyer 13,294, 42%. So that is just about 4,000 votes. That's not going to make up that threshold there between Kim Schreyer and Dino Rossi. So that we can say right now.
About a 12,000 vote split then at this point between them.
In the other race that we've been waiting on with Mark Malosha,
Mm-hmm.
let's flip through this old school style. Here we go. Mark Malosha, 507 votes in the state Senate 30th district. Claire Wilson, 463.
Wow.
She's still up.
So she's still up based on those King County numbers as well.
So the Republicans are up in Pierce County, but maybe not by the margins that they had hoped.
Correct.
And do we have any insight on the measures, the ballot initiatives?
The ballot initiatives. Isn't this fun? This is just
Sorry,
like
guys. This is old school.
Nostalgic.
Right. This is what happens when the computer doesn't work and automatically do all the work
All right,
for
we're
you.
looking through the initiatives.
We used to call King
initiatives.
County Elections Office to get numbers on election night.
Right.
Pick a subject, any subject. I'm not seeing the
In case
initiatives.
you're just
So.
now tuning in, let's go back and talk about.
Oh
some
wait,
of
I
these
found the initiatives. They're right at the top of the page.
Okay, so while you dissect, 1631 is really what we were keeping an eye on.
1631, no. 63%, 87,000.
Oh, wow.
Almost 88,000 votes.
Okay.
And 36% voting yes on 1631. That's the carbon fee. So
another
Pearson,
resounding
Snohomish,
no from Pierce County. Right now, what you're looking at is the total with Snohomish reflected in that total number. But Pierce County also saying no to this. So we're going to have to keep waiting and watching. And we will be back with you in just a short minute. For now, we're going to rejoin some coverage on King 5 and NBC's coverage of the national picture.
Welcome to King 5's coverage of the midterm elections. I'm Lori Matsukawa along with Natalie Brand and Chris Daniels, and we're going to hear soon from our candidate, Kim Schreyer.
In the 8th district, this is the closely watched, very competitive race, and you see the early results there. Not all of the vote in, a large percentage in from King County right now, 53%. Kim Schreyer has the lead. She just took the stage, so let's head to Bellevue and the Democratic Party there.
Wow. Big wow. Did somebody say rescue the country? This is what democracy looks like. Thank you. Thank you to everyone here. I cannot believe this crowd, and everyone across the 8th district who put your trust in a community pediatrician. Who knocked on doors, who made phone calls, who reminded your neighbors to vote. We all did this together. Yes, this is what democracy looks like. Well, votes are still being counted, but things are looking good, really, really good. And we need every one of those ballots to be counted, and while this may take longer than any of us really wants, once every vote is counted, we feel optimistic that we will have made history and put a Democrat as leading the 8th district in Congress for the first time ever. Are you all drinking this in like I'm drinking this in? I have to tell you, this is giving me so much hope for our future. This is not even part of what I was scheduled to say. I am just telling you that from the bottom of my heart, I am feeling so hopeful and energized right now. So I wanted to take a moment to thank all the people who have made this campaign possible. And this starts with my phenomenal campaign team, my field organizers and interns who have devoted every second of the past year and a half. And thank you to the thousands of volunteers who worked tirelessly to make sure that we talked with voters in
Kim Schreyer speaking to supporters in Bellevue. We go now to our regular newscast, King 5 News on Kong.
Together, we knocked over 400,000 doors.
Yet. Now, I want to start with what Dino Rossi had to say. He's in that 8th congressional district race. Here's what he said just about 30 minutes ago, and he addressed the results that are in so far. Listen.
Obviously, we're optimistic, and we'll see what happens. You know, we worked hard. We all worked so hard. I slept really well last night because, you know what? I gave it everything I had. You know, and you look at why people run for office. There really is only one reason to ever run for public office, and that's to be in the right place at the right time to do something good for your community. That's it. I tell you what, if you just want to see your name in the paper, I guarantee you'll be surrounded by words you don't like. That is not the reason to ever run for public office. I ran for the 8th Congressional District because I really believed I had something to offer. I thought we have enough people yelling at each other in Washington, D.C. without adding another one.
The room here getting excited as they're watching some results come in. But back to this 8th congressional district race, Rossi saying that these are the numbers of just a few counties reporting. He's still waiting to see what all the results are. He also points out that his campaign was outspent 2-1 with outside groups pouring money into this race. He says even with that, he was still seeing a lot of success on the campaign trail as he knocked on doors, and he feels very optimistic still. We are going to continue to watch the results, and we'll bring you more throughout the evening. But for now, live in Issaquah, Natalie Swaby, King 5 News.
Natalie, thank you. And now to the Democrats, where Dr. Kim Schreyer has taken the podium. Let's listen in.
And I'm in this because it's time to give the middle class a pay raise. Because everyone who works hard deserves to be able to go to sleep at night and not have to worry about whether they can put food on the table the next day. I'm in this because it is our responsibility to the next generation and generations we will never know to protect our one and only planet. Because here in the 8th district, sun, wind, manufacturing, tech, we can be a leader and show the world how you can create jobs and grow the economy and invest in clean energy and do the right thing for the environment. I'm in this, a woman doctor, of course, so that women can make our own healthcare decisions. Because I trust women. And I'm in this to get corporate money out of our politics. You know that our campaign has rejected all corporate PAC money because there is no place in our politics for special interests like big pharma, big oil, or the NRA. And fundamentally, that's what this campaign is really all about. It's what it's always been. It's creating a government that is by the people and for the people. And finally, I am in this to put some checks and balances on this administration. And to fight for issues that really matter to working families, it is time to bring some much needed common sense to the other Washington. And this is why I am so excited and relieved and energized to know that Democrats have already flipped the House. So I stand here tonight grateful and determined and full of hope, and I will be honored to be your voice in Congress. And I promise you, I will fight every day for all of you and for the values we all share in the 8th District. And I will be a voice for our entire district because at our core, the values of people in Issaquah, Sammamish, Ellensburg are all the same. We want a better future for our children, and we want civility back. So I will be a voice for all of you. I will hold town halls. You will know where I stand. I will listen to you, and I will be your champion in Congress. I love you too. So we've got a lot of work to do. First, we need to make sure that every vote is counted. And when they are, I believe we will have a woman doctor in the House.
Kim Schreyer there sounding awfully optimistic, although she did concede that the rest of the numbers need to be counted. But in this congressional race that was very contentious, vacated by a Republican, and now it appears the Democrat will be taking over. She leads Dino Rossi right now, 53 to 47%, but just about 33% of the vote is in so far. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Now to the race for the 3rd Congressional District, and Republican incumbent Jamie Herrera Butler is holding a tight lead over Democratic challenger Carolyn Long. She's up by about 4 points.
Let's go to the eastern part of the state where Republican Kathy McMorris Rogers looks poised to hold on to her seat right now. She is leading her Democratic challenger Lisa Brown 56% to 44%.
And in the 9th district, no big challenge here. Incumbent Democrat Adam Smith ahead of Democratic challenger Sarah Smith 70% to 30%. Senator Maria Cantwell holds on to her seat. Cantwell defeated Republican challenger Susan Hutchison. Hutchison stepped down from her position as chair of the Washington State Republican Party earlier this year after 6 years at the helm. This will be Cantwell's 4th term. She gave her victory speech tonight in Pioneer Square.
This is one of the most amazing elections. When the voters of our state and many across the country in one of the most divisive environments can step up and have a record turnout and help set a mid-course correction. I want the voters of Washington State to know that I'm going to continue. No, I'm going to redouble my efforts to work across the aisle, to work with Democrats, with Republicans, with independents, to get things done for our country.
Now, along with the races, there, of course, were several key initiatives that were on the ballot.
You are probably bombarded with political ads about them. So here's a look at how the votes are looking so far. First up, Initiative 1631. This was the carbon tax. Right now, 44% approve and 56% are rejecting it. So this is the tax that would impose a starting fee of $15 per ton on carbon emissions beginning in 2020.
Next up, Initiative 1634, nicknamed Yes to Affordable Groceries. That is 54% of people giving it the green light. This initiative seeks to block future grocery taxes in Washington state.
Let's take a look at Initiative 1639, the most sweeping piece of gun safety legislation put before voters in recent history. 61% of voters approve of it. This would raise the purchase age to 21 for semi-automatic rifles, create enhanced background checks for rifles to be in line with the checks for handguns, and also to create some new standards for secure storage of guns.
Lastly, Initiative 940, that would require police training to de-escalate volatile situations and try to avoid the use of deadly force. It would also make it easier to prosecute officers for using unnecessary force. Right now, 60% of voters are in favor of that initiative. It also requires police provide mental health intervention and first aid on the spot. King 5's Drew Mickelson has been tracking all of these initiatives tonight.
Attorney General Bob Ferguson tried repeatedly in Olympia to get some new laws on the books regarding guns. Didn't work there. It appears, though, statewide, the numbers are very good, at least the initial numbers. Your reaction?
Yeah, it's overwhelming. I mean, more than 60%, but it just speaks volumes that the people are way ahead of the politicians when it comes to common sense gun reform.
What do you think it was? Because you know the struggles Republicans and Democrats had in Olympia on this. Why Why did the voters seem to, at least at this point, back it so strongly?
Voters are not afraid of the NRA or special interest groups. Politicians are. I know, I've spoken to them. They would not pass this common sense legislation the past 2 years. Then when it goes to the people, you see overwhelming support. I hope the politicians in Olympia, frankly, learn a lesson from what happened here tonight.
You told us earlier you do believe this will end up in a courtroom. There will be lawsuits filed. Is this constitutional? Does this law go too far regarding the Second Amendment?
Yeah, I believe it's constitutional. The courts will have the ultimate say. We'll do the best job we can to defend the will of the voters in this important issue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Attorney General Bob Ferguson,
Thanks.
we appreciate it. Again, the very initial results appear to suggest that I-1639 will be passing in the state of Washington. From the Edgewater Hotel, I'm Drew Mickelson. Now back to you.
I'm meteorologist Craig Herrera. We had mountain snow, a little bit of rain, but things are all about to change. This should be our rainiest month. I'll explain what's going on coming up.
We're also going to be checking in with our political panel and voting in the dark, how people in Tennessee voted after they lost power.
And as we head to break, we wanted to leave you with this neat shot. Look back at King 5 election coverage from the 1950s. Back after this.
So we've been getting all these election results, and it's a lot of information coming at you at one time. And we wanted to know, what does it all mean?
Political reporter Natalie Brand, Chris Daniels, political analyst Marco Lowe. They're going to join us right now to try to break down what all this means. Hey, guys.
Hi there, and let's start with some of these big initiatives that we've been talking about. You just saw the results, but what you didn't see is the story statewide, and Chris Daniels is going to show us what some of the measures look like county by county, because there's a big difference, particularly when we're talking about that carbon fee initiative 1631.
Yeah, 1631 and 1634 is what we want to cover real quickly over here on the Secretary of State's website. This is the carbon fee initiative concerning pollution, and you can see the overall vote right now, 44-37. Most voters, over 1 million, 55% saying no. And here's where it gets interesting, because in King County in particular, when the first numbers came in, we saw that 57% of voters were saying yes to this. But when you break it down and start to go into Snohomish County, the pendulum swings. 61% of voters said no. And then in Pierce County, which is giving us the numbers the old school way by paper tonight, 63% of voters said no. So 88,000 vote difference in Pierce County. That is the story with this initiative in particular on carbon fees. And if you go back to 1634, this is the one that could be all about Seattle's soda tax and the concern from Big Soda, so to speak, that this was going to be a statewide initiative. 54% of voters are approving of this statewide to limit these kind of soda taxes like we've seen in Seattle from going statewide. And again, you break it down county by county, 54% of voters in King voted to approve this, but the pendulum swings in the other direction in Snohomish County. 60% of voters saying that they would want to see these banned. And again, down in Pierce County, 63% of voters, 87,000 vote difference. So a big difference between Pierce and Snohomish County and what we saw in King County making the difference here statewide.
Yeah, and we just got an email from the opposition campaign to 1634 conceding at this point. But it really is interesting, Marco, to see the difference between King County, which sometimes can carry a big initiative, but not tonight when it comes to 1634 and 1631.
Absolutely. And when you see King County in 67% range, it can drag the state across almost any place it wants to. But when they started at 57%, we were talking here saying that may not be enough because we were going to see the rest of the counties come in lower.
Okay. Now we want to talk about some of these big congressional races that we've been reporting on. The 8th District in particular, where Democratic Dr. Kim Schreyer is up tonight. And then when you look at Southwest Washington, you have Republican Jamie Herrera Butler trying to defend her seat against a Democratic female challenger, Carolyn Long. That's also a very close race. And then in Spokane, you have incumbent Kathy McMorris Rogers and Democratic challenger Lisa Brown. So do you sense a common trend here? A lot of female candidates. Some people were predicting a pink wave tonight in terms of the number of women running in Congress this year. And Senator Maria Cantwell, also facing a female challenger, talked about that tonight a little bit ago.
There is going to be a check on this president. And I am especially happy and proud, though I am not surprised, to say that our new House majority is going to be powered by newly elected women from New York to Virginia to Oklahoma. Women took the House back.
Important correction. That, of course, is Washington's senior Senator Patty Murray, who ran in 1992 during what was then billed the Year of the Woman. I think we also have a new Year of the Woman this year.
A lot of candidates on both sides of the aisle that were running as female candidates, clearly, and victories tonight, particularly in the 8th, which has been a long-sought seat by the Democrats.
All right, we'll have much more next half hour and all night long here on Kong and also King 5.
Okay, thank you all. We appreciate your coverage. We're going to continue now with Seattle Proposition 1. This was known as the Families and Education and Preschool Levy.
It would add a property tax to replace 2 expiring levies, all in an effort to boost education funding to help underprivileged families. Right now, 69% of voters are in favor of that levy. Michael Crow is with supporters tonight.
Yeah, and guys, they are celebrating right now. Mayor Durkin said that 69%, that 68.5% is overwhelming support in those early returns. And of course, this funds early learning, K through 12, health programs, job preparation, and community college education for Seattle students. The mayor spoke just a few minutes ago. She thanked Seattle for investing in children and their future. Here's what she had to say.
What this will do is 3 things. It will almost double the number of preschool slots we have for families, so that those families that can't afford great preschool will now be able to make sure their kids have that education so they show up ready to learn in school.
And according to the voter guide, this would increase property taxes on the average home in Seattle by about $242 in 2019. The mayor said she justified that property tax increase to people who are concerned about the rising cost of living in Seattle as an investment in the future. And for that investment tonight, she says thank you. For now, we're live in Seattle. I'm Michael Crow, King 5 News.
Michael, thank you. During every election, there are inevitably problems, and voters in Tennessee were marking ballots without lights tonight. A storm knocked out power in parts of Knoxville. Election workers got out lanterns and gave out paper ballots. Some were on some backup systems to power the machines.
It's good. I mean, the batteries work on the machines, and you can see clear, and everybody, after they got their coffee, is happy.
All good once you have the coffee. Power came back on in all the precincts within just a few hours.
A little bit of coffee goes a long way. I want to show you some of the storms that moved through the eastern seaboard and across the southern states. There you can see that line right there. And that line did quite a number. Some severe weather that came out of this. As you can see, it's now moved off the coast. But take a look at all these little icons. These are storm reports that came into the National Weather Service. All those tornadoes you see some through Middle Tennessee, also North Alabama. The icons that you see with little blue with like little trees swaying back and forth. Those were thunderstorm wind damage reports all over Tennessee as well. And then up into the north, into Kentucky, heavy rain, 2 to 3 inches of rain in some cases as this system moved through today. And while it was fast moving, boy, did it drop some rain. So all of those blues that you see, most spots getting 2 to 3 inches of rain within 24 hours. Bringing it back home, you can see downtown Seattle right now looks beautiful. 48 degrees is where we stand, and some of the rain has moved over through the convergence zone this evening. Even saw a couple of lightning strikes close to Kent this evening, but that's where the rain remains, and it's been there. A couple of scattered showers right off the coast as well, and this will continue to move off to the south and southeast. Not a whole lot of moisture behind it, so as we go through the day tomorrow, through this evening, most of this starts to end. Tomorrow morning, we'll wake up to clouds and some low visibility. After that, we've got sunshine. The sunshine will be with us as we go through most of Friday. Friday evening, this ridge of high pressure breaks down. Storm track finally comes through. We'll get one wave of energy and a couple of scattered showers. After that, we will certainly get a bit of a break again. So November is typically our rainiest month. Not really the case as we go through the week ahead. Highs tomorrow in the 40s and 50s. And here's a look at the 7-day forecast. 53 for a high tomorrow. You got some scattered showers on a Friday and then break into Saturday and Sunday. We're back with more election results right after this break. You did it perfectly. Thank you.
Catch up on a couple other stories making news tonight. A man who set off a pipe bomb in a New York subway station has been convicted of terrorism charges. Aqayed Ullah faces up to life in federal prison at his sentencing next April. He was the only person hurt when the pipe bomb detonated last December. That device was loaded with screws and shrapnel.
We have a consumer alert. If you've got cake mix in your pantry, Duncan Hines has voluntarily recalled 4 of its cake mix varieties because of salmonella concerns. Federal health officials found salmonella in a sample of white cake mix. As a precaution, Duncan Hines is voluntarily pulling 2.4 million boxes of cake mix off store shelves. You can find more information on king5.com/newslinks.
And Governor Inslee's Orca Task Force made a big recommendation today. The group voted to restrict all commercial whale watching of Puget Sound resident orca pods for 3 to 5 years. The task force says that move will give scientists and regulators some more time to study just how much boat traffic the southern resident killer whales can tolerate. The recommendation is now headed to the governor's desk.
In our next half hour, we take a look at the balance of power at the State House in Olympia. Keep it here, King 5 News at 9:30 is ahead.